In this podcast episode, Ben Shapiro criticizes the Biden administration for prioritizing the Trans Day of Visibility over Easter, the holiest day in the Christian calendar. He points out the irony of celebrating a progressive ideology on a religious day. The Biden administration's decision to put out messaging about the Trans Day of Visibility on Easter Sunday is seen as a reflection of their commitment to progressivism. Shapiro criticizes President Biden for proclaiming March 31st as Trans Day of Visibility and emphasizing the importance of supporting transgender individuals. He questions the administration's focus on gender identity issues on a day that holds significant religious importance for Christians. The White House's response to the backlash is seen as dismissive, with spokesperson Andrew Bates defending Biden's faith while ignoring the conflicting messages sent out on Easter. Shapiro argues that using religion for political gain is hypocritical and goes against the principles of Christianity. Shapiro highlights the White House's decision to light up New York landmarks in transgender flag colors on Easter Sunday, further emphasizing the administration's focus on progressive values over religious traditions. The left's attempt to portray Jesus as supportive of transgenderism is criticized by Shapiro, who points out that Christianity teaches love for the sinner, but not the sin. He questions the validity of using Jesus to justify progressive ideologies that go against traditional Christian beliefs. Shapiro discusses the decline in religious observance in democratic states, contrasting it with the higher attendance at religious services in Republican states. He argues that the Biden administration's actions reflect a disconnect with religious values held by a significant portion of the population. The recent events in the Middle East have once again brought to light the complex dynamics at play in the region. On one side, there is the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, with both sides engaging in violent actions that have resulted in civilian casualties. On the other side, there are the political leaders and organizations in the West who are quick to condemn Israel while turning a blind eye to the actions of terrorist groups like Hamas. The left has been quick to condemn Israel for its actions in the conflict, labeling them as human rights abuses. Politicians like Jamal Bowman have gone as far as calling Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu a maniac on national television. They argue that Israel's actions are disproportionate and that they are causing a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. Shapiro points out that they fail to acknowledge the role that Hamas plays in perpetuating the conflict by using civilians as human shields and launching attacks from civilian areas. Despite the left's claims of standing up for human rights, their support for Hamas and condemnation of Israel reveal a deep-seated bias. Shapiro says that they ignore the fact that Israel has accepted ceasefire proposals and has been providing aid to Gaza, only to have it stolen by Hamas. He sees the left's blind support for terrorist groups like Hamas as a clear example of their misguided priorities and their willingness to sacrifice truth and justice for political gain. As the conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate, there are growing concerns about the rise of extremism and terrorism around the world. Groups like ISIS have issued proclamations calling for attacks on Christians and Jews, posing a threat to global security. The recent assassination of an exiled Iranian journalist in London and the use of directed energy weapons by Russian intelligence further highlight the dangers posed by extremist groups and hostile foreign powers. Shapiro criticizes the Biden administration for its handling of domestic and international affairs. Vice President Kamala Harris is criticized for her performative actions, such as visiting abortion clinics and hosting rapper Fat Joe at the White House. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg's reassurances about the safety of air travel ring hollow in the face of recent incidents involving Boeing planes.